Moving on to the next team here, we do have the Indianapolis Colts. They also finished 11-5 last season, making a wild card berth. But of course, they got the beat by the Buffalo Bills, 27-24. Phillip Rivers has officially retired from the NFL, and they picked up Carson Wentz here in the offseason. So Wyatt, they filled their quarterback needs in the free agency. The Colts are a team that's that I thought was pretty complete. So, with that being said, who is their best draft pick this season?
Yeah, I think their best draft pick was their first rounder, Kwity Paye, defensive end out of Michigan. He's a guy that I think should have went in the top 15 because I think he will be a top 15 player from this draft. So I was really excited they landed him. I think that was a spot they needed to fill. I know that they didn't go with offensive tackle, which everybody freaked out about, and at the time I was freaking out about. But today, of course, they did solve that issue with Eric Fisher, which essentially lines up their offensive line good enough for the future now. I mean, you lose Anthony Costanza, which is a huge loss for you, and you replace him with Eric Fisher, who's a great tackle to fill that void with, and a guy who is, still has the young side of him. He is not, nearing retirement within the next couple of years. So, I think that was a good pickup for them. But I would say even though they didn't go with an offensive tackle, it was still an all-around pretty good draft, but their best pick was Kwity Paye.
So with that being said, you did mention the name Eric Fisher, which he just signed a deal with the Indianapolis Colts today as a 1-year deal. However, he will not be ready to play till at least late October. So I mean that's almost half of the season that he will miss from that Achilles tear in the playoff season last year. So let's kick it over to Tori here. Tori, who is the best draft pick in your eyes for the Indianapolis Colts?
I gotta agree. Kwity Paye was projected to be anywhere from number 8 all the way to 15. The fact that he fell, and we talked about it on draft night, like he was kind of free falling, and I'm like, man, the Colts picked him. I'm like, they got to steal. They have a guy that's basically, if you ask me, is almost a clone to like what Robert Mathis was for them. So to get him at 21, the guy is 6'4", 272 pounds. He's got a great pass rush arsenal on him. This guy is a plug and play defender that they have. So I absolutely 110% agree with White on this. Kwity Paye was a steal at 21 for them.
Yeah, and anytime you can steal a offensive lineman, I think it's a win-win in your eyes there. Like I said earlier. So on the flip side of the coin, where there's good, there's always bad. So Tori, let's kick it to you first here on the snake style debate here. Who was the worst draft pick for the Colts this season?
So I'm going to go with their 6th round pick, number 218, Sam Ehlinger. Sam Ehlinger was a highly rated prospect. Everybody knows coming out of college. I believe he was the number 1 rated recruiter. He was the number 1 rated quarterback in that class. And as we know, Texas doesn't have a great track record for developing quarterbacks anyways.
Right.
But Sam Ehlinger, by the way, rip to his brother. I don't know if you saw that his brother passed away.
I did not.
Yeah.
The other day. So
he was a linebacker for Texas.
I'm just really not a fan of Sam Ehlinger's game. I don't think it translates well to the NFL. I know why it was like, this guy's either going to be great or out of the NFL. I'm leaning towards 99% that this guy's going to be out of the NFL, or one of those guys that's third string that bounces around the league for 3 or 4 years and then is gone.
Right. Yeah, so the one thing that kind of raised my eyes when I saw this draft pick was, didn't the Colts just drafted Jacob Easton in the 2nd or 3rd round just last season to kind of be the predecessor to Phillip? So I'm kind of confused of what their quarterback situation is, because like right now they have Jacob Easton as
Carson
2nd string,
Wentz.
Jalen Morton as 3rd string, and then Sam Ehlinger is sitting at 4th string here. So right now they actually have 5 quarterbacks on the roster going into camp. So I'm kind of confused of what they're doing. Oh, like over there, and Carson Wentz was only 5-6 years into the league, right, guys? So I mean,
yeah.
he definitely has a lot of tread left on those tires. So why?
Well, I can tell you exactly what that pick for Sam Ehlinger was. It was 100% a second insurance policy for Carson Wentz, because the Colts kind of looked at themselves and thought, well, we got a guy who is extremely talented, can be talented. He's shown that. He was in the MVP race, but he's also a guy that averages 2 to 3 injuries a year, and a guy who can never stay healthy. So we're going to give him 2 solid backups, so that way if this does fall through, we've got 2 other guys behind him that could be vital options for our offense moving forward in the future. I think that's kind of where they were going with Ehlinger still on the board. Honestly, I was surprised that Ehlinger was still on the board in they got him in the sixth round, right?
That sounds right.
Sixth
Yeah,
round.
I was surprised he was even there. Honestly, I thought he was a third, maybe fourth rounder, a day two guy for sure, in my opinion. Like I said, he's one of those guys that will either be a household name or you will never hear the name Sam Ehlinger again. And like 20 years down the road, we'll all look back and be like, hey, you remember that Sam Ehlinger guy? You know, went to Texas. You know, it'll be one of those situations. Or like I said, or he'll be a household name. I don't think there's any middle of the road here.
Like Chris Sims.
Exactly.
Let me ask
Except
you
for
guys.
he won't get his own show.
So let me go ahead and sidetrack here a tad bit here. Has there ever been a successful Texas quarterback in recent memory?
In the NFL?
Yeah, in the NFL.
No.
Is Colt McCoy the most successful
Would you
one?
count Colt McCoy as successful? That's what I was about to say. Would you count Colt?
Like he's probably been the most successful. He's been in the league the longest, right?
He's got longevity.
Yeah,
he's a career backup guy.
I think he's
not somebody you're going to hand the keys over to your.
I think he has two. I think he has 2 Super Bowl rings too, if I'm not mistaken. So,
well, it wasn't because of him.
Well, no,
it wasn't because of him.
But I mean, a ring's a ring, right? Like at the end of the day,
holding that clipboard.
I would wear that ring proud. So, Wyatt, who was your Colts' worst draft pick? Because you kind of boasted on Sam Ehlinger there for like a little bit, but who was your worst pick?
Yeah, my worst pick for him, and I'm going to botch this name, so heads up for everybody here. I went with defensive end Kwity Paye for my best pick. My worst pick is going to be defensive end out of Vanderbilt, Dayo Odeyingbo. Totally botched that. I know. I am so sorry. But once again, you didn't really need another defensive end here. I wasn't really sure what that pick was for. You just got Kwity Paye, which I felt like was a steal. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of that move. Plus, nothing that he really did. He didn't really do anything spectacular at college. He was not ever really anybody that had drawn out of the pack that anybody was like, oh, hey, excited about. He was coming to the league, so I don't know. Like I said, I was kind of just confused as to why they went with a defensive end there whenever you just got Kwity Paye there. So, I mean, it's going to be a mean pass rush, and he'll add to some depth, but I don't think we'll see much out of him, at least in Indianapolis. If he's going to do anything, he needs to go somewhere else.
So, what is your grade for the Indianapolis Colts in this year's draft?
I give him a B plus, or excuse me, not a B plus, excuse me, B minus. Like I said, Kwity Paye fell to them. I think it was a really good pick. I think Sam Ehlinger, they got him at a good place. They didn't reach for him at all. That was really the main problem that I thought a lot of teams were going to have with quarterbacks like Davis Mills, with quarterbacks like Kellen Mond, with quarterbacks like Sam Ehlinger. I thought we were going to see a real issue with people trying to reach way up into the draft. Like, hey, it's the third round. I feel like they're about ready to go. We need to take this guy now whenever he'll be there in the sixth round. So I think the Colts did a really good job of being patient, being calm, waiting for Sam Ehlinger to be there at the right moment. I don't think he would have been there in the seventh round, so I think where they got him was perfect. So like I said, I think they solved some issues they needed. They maybe could have gone somewhere with offensive tackle, but then again, we can't really be mad about it because they literally just got Eric Fisher. So if we would have done this edition of the show with the AFC South draft grades 3 days ago, I would have been like, oh, hey, terrible draft because you didn't get an offensive tackle, blah, 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 blah. But now that this came out, I'm like, hey, great draft. He's coming in. You've got all your needs solved, and yeah.
All right. Now, Tori, what is your draft grade for the Indianapolis Colts?
I give them a C. The only reason that they're not getting a D is because Kwity Paye, and I'm a huge fan of their actual seventh round pick, Will Freeze. So those two picks kind of saved them from having a failing type grade. Well, what was the saying in college? A D will still get you a degree.
Yep.
D's get degrees, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my philosophy in high school.
I mean, that was pretty much my philosophy in school too. But they didn't do anything really outstanding in this draft. It seems like they reached for a lot of guys. They made picks that didn't make sense to me. So like Kwity Paye, you don't pass up on a player like that. That was literally best player available at that point. And yeah, you absolutely don't pass up on that. It's like I said, I really like the Will Freeze pick too, but Shawn Davis, I'm not a big fan of. Ehlinger, I don't think is a good quarterback. They got basically a project wide receiver, a kind of raw guy that Mike Strachan from the University of Charleston. So how many players have ever been drafted out of the University of Charleston? So
2.
I'm just I have no clue. You know, Kylen Granson for a tight end. Like it's like I said, it's just nothing. There's nothing spectacular outside of the Kwity Paye pick. The rest of it was just blah. So
just blah.
Just blah. They get a C.